what lessons can we draw out of this scenario that I have painted? One is that there's nothing social happening here. Kenya is as capitalist as always. Kenya, the government may be a capitalist government, but the capital has become us. It's no longer tea that is being sold. It's no longer coffee that is being sold. It's no longer even minerals that are being sold. What the Kenya government is selling is us. We are the capital. They are selling us. They're selling our labor. So they are going making deals with people abroad and saying, oh, Kenyans, the teachers will come and teach in your schools. Kenyans will come and clean your houses. So they are selling us. But they're also selling two other things. They're selling the fact that we cannot do without healthcare and we cannot do without education. It is, again, very cynical. Because if you think about tea, for example, people can do without tea. You can say, I'm going to sell tea. Now it will be 500 times what the previous price was. And what will happen is that Kenyans will say, no, we'd rather do without tea. Or you can decide you're not going to pay farmers very well, and the farmers can say, you know what, it's never that serious, we're not growing tea anymore. But with health and education, you have a captured market. Because if you're going to get sick, all human beings get sick. And if they get sick, they are going to look for help. And all human beings want an education, especially for their children. It's human. It's our human instinct to look for education, not necessarily in the school system, but we want information that helps us make decisions. We can get it from the school, we can get it from media, but we are going to look for information. That's what these people are banking on. They know that human beings cannot do without working, they cannot do without learning, and they cannot do it without seeking healthcare. And that's what they're exploiting, because they know you will never say, oh no, let me stay without getting treatment for now. I'll suffer in pain because I don't want to pay for it. Normally, if there are people who are saying that, it's because they genuinely have no resources. But if they had, they would go look for the healthcare. That's what they are banking on. So it's us who are the product. And that's why production is not growing in Kenya. And it won't grow because the kind of elites we have, they don't want production, because production threatens them. You see, if I'm a factory person, I start a factory that makes clothes and they sell, then the politician in my area will start getting nervous because there are people I'm employing. That means I have influence. There's something I'm making. That means I am confident in myself. Politicians cannot allow production, and that's where our problem is. The second thing we need to see is that narratives matter. The reason why we are accepting a lot of this BS from the time of independence is because of the narratives we are told. So we are told, oh, this vote is an anti-imperialist vote, we believe. We don't check the history, we don't debate it, we don't think politically and say, is it true? We just accept. So we are hardened into these narratives. Like now, one of the narratives that is being used to counter opposition to SHIF is this one, which is so insidious. We are being told that the people opposed to SHIF are so attached to their salaries. They're so selfish. They don't care whether other people get salaries. It's like those of us who are questioning SHIF, we have nothing else to say. We are too stupid. The only thing we think of is material and we want our money. Of course, we are going to mention the money, but money is not the only issue we have. We also care for society. Kenya Kwanza, you're not the only ones. Even us, we are Kenyans and we care for this society. Everybody cares for society. So to reduce our position to an obsession with the paycheck is really very insulting. But it is working. It is working because at the rallies, that's what politicians are going to say. They're going to say those who are opposed, the way they did with the housing levy. They'll say those who are opposed because they don't want to share. But the thing is, how come us we are sharing and the people who are stealing in the billions are not sharing? How come it's only us who are being expected to be social? to share our salaries, and the people in government are just looting, and leaving nothing for the rest of us? Why is it only us who are social? So going forward, what is our problem with healthcare? And by the way, I said the same thing also about education. Our problem is the economy. And we don't have a trickle-down economics model. What we have is a looting feudal model. What the elites do is that they steal, then they use narratives of ethnicity to dupe us that we are all in the same boat. That's a feudal economy. Because even in Europe, during feudalism, whoever owned the land owned the peasants on that land. That's the same thing that is happening with us. We are being owned through narratives of belonging and ethnicity and African culture, and we are being social, so that we don't question the politics we are getting. So our problem is the economy. Until the economy improves, all these other fancy housing levy, nyef, it will still be the same thing where you're taxing a small sliver of society while the people on the top continue to loot. And then the people on the top, because they don't do any work and they have access to media, they go spreading lies about the rest of us and turning people against us, calling us digital wankers and upper deck, as if there's nothing we are saying. And then the next problem is, I hope we can see the importance of education and the arts. Part of my frustration with what Ndii is doing is that there's nobody challenging his ideas. And you see, he can get away with it when I talk first, because I'm not an economist. So he can pull the numbers at me and tell me stories. And I find it a bit difficult to oppose them. I've read a bit of economics because of what it has done to education. I talk to economists, so I can basically get the hang of it. But the way he pulls the wool over our eyes, we have no economists who are challenging him. And every Kenyan, if you know somebody who studied economics, can you ask them what are they saying? How are they refuting what Ndii is saying? There's no voice. And that's an education problem. A fifth of Kenyans who go to university are in economics and business schools. How come none of them have come up with a rebuttal to him? But it's possible they can't, because they are all taught the same neoliberal economics that Ndii was fed on. They're probably doing the same neoliberal ideas that he has learned. So they can't see the problem. And that's why the civil servants are there just nodding their heads when Ndii is talking, saying, yeah, they are believing everything he's saying. Even actually, we also have a problem with the civil service. They can't think, and they are taught not to think. And I know, because I'm in the education system, and I have talked about this. We have a problem with our education system. It is training us not to think, and to run away from thinking, and to hate thinking. And worse, it's because we do not respect the arts. Right now, what have the arts been called in CBC? Talent. But talent is not arts. Arts is work. Talent is a gift from God, or from whoever you think your maker is. Talent is innate, but the arts is the work you do. And this idea of arts being talent is what is making Kenyans not take the arts and humanities seriously. But you see, because I did the arts, I can be able to say, okay, I'm not an economist, but I have to oppose what Ndii is saying because of the philosophical and the social implications, because I talk about that all the time. We need better economics education. And this is something I've been talking about ever since I started following people like Richard Wolff and Michael Hudson. And I encourage you to check what they are saying. There's a problem with Western economics education. And that's what's being taught in our universities, unfortunately. The other thing is now linked to arts education. We Kenyans, we need philosophy. And philosophy isn't old white men from the 18th century. Every society has a philosophy. Every human being philosophizes. If you ask why, if you ask questions of what does this mean, you're already being philosophical. I encourage you to see Joe Kobuthi's conversation with me on philosophy. We've now done 3 conversations because Kenyans are so scared of philosophy. We've been scared from it by the church and the education system. We must start philosophizing. When people propose economic ideas, we need to ask, what does this say about us? What values are being proposed through this economic policy? If we don't do that, we are going to keep on getting these neoliberal economics, which are being presented as bottom-up and as social, when really they are top-down economics. It's forced socialism. That's not what socialism is. That's not what bottom-up is. We have to be respected as agents of development in our own country. We cannot keep on accepting these formulas from the state. And the other thing is, if we want to be philosophical, we have to value theory. You see, the thing is, theory, unlike what the media tells us, theory is the stories that link different events. And actually, part of why the Gen Z struggles are taking longer than they actually should is because we have all these things going on. One day it's Morara, next day it's Casmuel, next day it's so-and-so, somebody's abducted, somebody's this. And all these stories are never being connected together. Okay, we are trying with Ruto must go, but we need more robust philosophy and theory so that we can see the links between all these events. Like I've been telling people, and I will keep saying it, this SHIF thing is CBC. Parental involvement is the same as SHIF, because what parental involvement is saying is, if you don't get the education you want for your child, it's your fault. Look for another school, pay for it. Your child's education depends on you. And then we are told that this is an equal education system. Come on, people. But you see, because we hate theory and we hate philosophy and we hate the arts, we don't see the links between these different policies. So we need to value theorizing. We need to value stories. We need to value philosophy so that we can see the connections between different oppressions. And then one of the things that we need to see is that surely people, socialism is not, this government is not social or socialist. I don't even know what word they want to use, but none of their policies are social. And not only that, this is a tactic that the government has been playing since 1965. In 1965, the sessional paper number 10, which was a very capitalist economic plan for Kenya, was called African Socialism. I was just reading this book by Shiraz Durrani, wrote this book. And he said as I started reading it, I was thinking, the way he's saying that Kenya was pretending to be socialist, but it was very capitalist. I started telling myself, hey, maybe even that paper, the sessional paper number 10, maybe it was written by the Americans or the English, because I was saying this is a very colonial tactic of pretending that you're capitalist but using socialist words. And then I found this page, which I have to read. I was so amused. In fact, I burst out laughing because I was like, of course, now it makes sense. So the sessional paper number 10 of 1965 was supposedly written by Tom Mboya. But this is what Durrani says. And I had the same suspicion. He says, KANU brought some time to work out its strategy for winning the parliamentary vote on capitalism. This was when the US advisors embedded in the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development came up with a paper officially credited to Tom Mboya. An interesting note was the use of American spellings in the document at a time when it was the British spellings that were being used in Kenya. This is a pointer to the real authors of the document. I burst out laughing because I was like, yeah, I just felt this was very American. Thus, the need at the time was for KANU to challenge socialism and to justify and explain African socialism and to show how it differed from the socialism of Oginga Odinga, Pio Gama Pinto, Bildad Kagia, and others. And then he says a little later, the real purpose behind this new ideology was of Africanization allows the government to avoid social, political, and economic arguments or explain the ideological direction of the government. That's what's happening. And then he even says the rest of the document, now this social African socialism nonsense, carries with it semantics and political juggles to avoid mentioning the real issues. Capitalism in Kenya uses the word social to deflect attention from the fact that they are imposing capitalist policies. This SHIF should not be SHIF, it should be CHIF, Capitalist Health Insurance Fund, because there are people making money from it. There are people making money from the private healthcare to which people run away to, and who are making tenders from government healthcare. There's nothing social about this healthcare system.